Hello and welcome to the Escape Podcast, your source for all good things in universe and movies. I'm Josh.
And I'm Dave. Join us as we explore the vast reaches of science fiction, fantasy, action, adventure, and beyond.
You're Dave?
I'm Dave. Oh, no. I'm sorry. I meant to say Dave created me.
From what?
He took parts from all those guys you killed and hid in the walls, and here I am.
Oh, okay.
All right.
You did a pretty good job.
I'm Brandon.
Brandon?
Yes.
Okay. So, Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you. So it's tradition here to talk about Rogue One, yes?
It seems to be, yes.
Well, I might as well get my 2 cents in then real quick. It seems like everybody's had a pretty positive outlook on it. There are parts of it that I liked, but I wasn't real keen on the movie. You had mentioned that there was part that took you out of the movie, and I'm assuming it's the CG Grandma Tarkin.
Yeah, I don't know. It just, even the way the team was just, they were in that prison or little jail cell together, and it's like they stuck together the whole thing. It just seemed very, fast how they just all banded together. Like, I know the Felicity Jones and the guy, I can't remember, they were kind of on a mission together to go find her father. I get that. But then the guy that was a former pilot, and then the blind guy and his gunner friend, they just kind of happened to be in that little jail cell and just kind of all escaped together, and then they just stuck together. Mm-hmm. It just didn't feel like there was any building of their, I don't know, like the chemistry. There was nothing there to me. They just, for some reason, they just stuck together.
The characters weren't well developed at all. Like, I didn't know anything about any of them, really. I didn't know why she was such a troublemaker. You didn't get to see much of her life. You saw her as a little kid. And then immediately jumped to her being held off to prison. So you knew she was a troublemaker. You didn't know exactly why or what she was doing or how she got away from what's his name?
Forrest Whitaker's character.
Yes, Forrest
I can't
Whitaker.
remember his name though. Sal, I don't know.
Sale.
Okay.
So another thing is like it was all chopped up. Like, you could tell. I had heard that there were a lot of reshoots and stuff.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it kind of jumped around a little bit, and there were parts that were missing that should have been in there.
I would definitely like to know what was cut, because if you watch the trailers, there's things you see that aren't in the movie at all.
Yeah, it didn't flow all that well to me. I watched it twice.
Okay.
And
see, I've only seen it once still. I do want to check it out again, though.
Probably watch it again when it comes out on video, but the second time in the theater, like, I could hardly stay awake. It didn't really hold my interest that well. It just seemed like they were stuffing a lot of fan service into it, nostalgia, like, oh, I know that guy, guy. C-3PO and R2-D2 show up, which is fine. They showed him for a second.
Yeah.
It made me laugh.
Yeah.
But, like, the whole movie was like that, like the Grandma Tarkin. If they had just shown him his reflection and had him in that one scene and that was it, that would have been fine. I would have thought, oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
But they were so confident in their CG that they wanted
he was pretty major in it.
Yeah, they made him almost like one of the main characters.
Just about, yeah.
Every time he was on screen,
it looked like a very good video game character to me.
As good as it is,
yeah,
they cannot get to the point, I think, for a lot of people, where, as far as a human being goes, it looks real. There's that uncanny valley.
Yeah, basically, someone has argued, well, or I think it was Dave, he said, like, well, you're seeing these, crazy aliens and stuff, but when you look at people every day and then you see them try to replicate a person, there's just something.
It's in the eyes and in the mouth.
Yeah, you can detect is not quite. There's been times where I can pinpoint, like, yeah, something that this is not what's right. And then sometimes I can't quite put my finger on it, but there's just something about it. Other characters like this where it's just like something isn't right here. Like Robert Downey Jr. in Civil War. That intro part where he's young.
I thought that was
it looks really
good.
good, but there's still something about it.
I thought it was really good. I actually thought it was better in that than in this.
Yeah. But maybe that's because they're still using Robert Downey Jr. to make him,
Yeah, that's true. But like you said, I could still kind of tell. And then when it turns out that it was all like a hologram anyway, you kind of forgive it.
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
They didn't flesh out the characters enough for me. A lot of them didn't have backstories. I didn't understand some of the scenes, probably because of the way they were cutting and reshooting.
Yeah.
Like the slug.
Because I think another guy had to come in to do something too, I thought. they had a totally separate guy come in after the fact to, I can't remember if it was rewrite some things or re-edit some things. So it makes sense that it wouldn't make sense.
Yeah.
It wouldn't flow.
Like, there was that scene where, like, they had that slug tentacle monster come out and get that pilot. Like, let's see if you're telling the truth. What was that all about? Like, it was in there for a second, and then there was nothing to it afterwards.
Yeah.
And they said he would be messed up, but then the next time they showed him, he's, like, sitting in the corner, and they say, hey, you're the pilot. He's like, oh, yeah, I am the pilot. And then that was it. He snapped out of it.
Yeah, but I think he also did say the longer... Didn't he say the longer it holds you or whatever?
It was just... It felt like an odd scene. It felt like there's either more to it that they cut out, or they were going to add more to it, and then didn't do it.
It'd be interesting if they added those deleted scenes, or even had a cut that put back some of the things that were cut. Like a director's cut or something that re-added those
Another
scenes.
thing would be the relationship between...
Jin and... I can't remember the...
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't remember the names
Han
either.
Solo, essentially.
Basically, the Han Solo.
Yeah.
Was there supposed to be kind of a romance there or not? I didn't want there to be, because I get tired of seeing that in every movie.
Yeah.
But they kind of hinted at it a little bit, and then didn't.
Almost at the end on the beach, I almost wondered.
It felt like they had no chemistry together.
Yeah.
It could have been better. There were parts I liked about it. Gareth Edwards, the director, he's a newer director.
He did that Monsters and Godzilla.
Yeah, I've seen Monsters. I liked Monsters, and I can see why maybe they might want to pick him to make movies. He can make a movie look really good. Just the shots he gets and stuff, they're all beautiful shots. I don't know if he has what it takes. I don't know if it's the writing or what, but where his movies are just a little bit boring.
Yeah.
Godzilla, I don't know if you're going to cover that later.
I didn't care for that.
I've rewatched it. I've watched it about 4 times.
Yeah.
Just I'm a huge Godzilla fan.
Okay. I only seen that one once.
I don't care about the first hour or so of the movie.
Yeah.
I just want to watch the last few minutes, the last 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And even then, like, it's so almost unbearable to watch that first hour or so.
Well, isn't, like, since you mentioned, like, he's good at making things look good, isn't Zack Snyder, he did Watchmen and Batman vs. Superman, right?
Yes.
Isn't that the guy? Okay, I've heard that similar complaint about him where he can make things look good, but...
Those movies are pretty stylized, but I'm not a big fan of the Batman vs. Superman, or...
I didn't care for it.
What was it? Superman... Man of Steel.
Man of Steel, yeah.
I didn't really care for either of those for various
Did he do
reasons.
Man of Steel?
Yes.
He did? Okay.
Sure. I think they're moving away from him, though, which should be a good thing.
I don't even know if DC can catch up at this point. I didn't see Suicide Squad yet. I didn't hear good things about it. I'm willing to watch it, but I don't know, man. I'm starting to wonder if they can do it.
Well, what they have going for them is that there's a lot of people willing to go out and see dumb movies, like Transformers. I haven't seen any of them.
Oh, gee.
I've heard they're all horrible.
Even
and
the first one?
I heard they get worse and worse as they go, especially the last one. But as long as they're watching it in China, they're making enough money to keep making them.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Anyway, for Rogue One, there were parts I liked about it.
Yeah, definitely.
Some of the shots were beautiful.
I didn't dislike it. I didn't like, oh my goodness, that was incredible. Like, I'm a little gray on it, a little indifferent. Like, I didn't love it, but I didn't hate it. It was just okay.
It had some nice shots. Some of the characters were kind of neat. I just wish I knew more about them. Like, the force sensitive guy that was there at the temple.
Yeah.
The way he'd fight with his bow and stuff. That was cool. Some of the flashbacks and references were cool. It's just they overdid it.
Yeah, there definitely was a lot of references to other things or things to come or whatever.
And then I liked that it was a different story because I felt like...
Absolutely, yeah.
The Force Awakens felt way too similar to the original trilogy to me.
Yeah, I could see that.
And this was different, and it kind of cleared up the issue with why the Death Star had such a huge...
I liked that. Yeah,
huge
that it was a deliberate thing, not an accidental.
Right, yeah, it was sabotage.
Sure.
So... That was cool. Anyway, those are my thoughts about Rogue One.
Any other movies you're looking forward to seeing this coming year?
Jeez. I'm still into the Marvel movies. I'm starting to feel the fatigue a little bit, but just watching, I know where they want to go, and watching them get there is real fun for me. And I kind of like how they're blending the characters into each other's movies now.
Mm-hmm.
The next Thor movie is supposed to have the Hulk and Doctor Strange and who knows who else in it.
Yeah.
And from everything I've heard, it sounds like it might be a really fun movie.
Okay. I mean, I think I said this last time. I'm not saying I'll never watch them again. I'm just a little burnt out. Not really driven to see it. I did not like Guardians of the Galaxy, and personally, I don't think they should tie them to the Avengers. I know in the comic books that's how it goes. I almost feel like they should be their own separate thing, but they're gonna.
Well, they're kind of doing that, but at least with these first two movies.
Yeah.
I'm
I think
looking
the
forward
third
to
one,
it.
they're gonna put them together, right?
I liked Guardians of the Galaxy, maybe not as much as some people, but I liked it.
Yeah.
But yeah, towards the end, they're going to have everybody come together because the big bad guy is going to be so big and
Yeah,
bad.
I get it. Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if most of them end up dead, and then somehow...
Yeah, I was gonna say, where is there left to go? I mean, what about the new King Kong or Kong Skull Island?
I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
When I saw the first trailer drop towards the end of last year, I was so excited. First of all, that's an amazing trailer. When I saw the second trailer, I was a little bit disappointed. I felt like they kind of showed a little much. So if you're out there listening and you watch the first trailer, stop there.
Do you think there's going to be dinosaurs in it? Everything
There's
I've seen doesn't show
bones.
dinosaur bones, but I'm just curious because I don't know. I feel there should be.
Well, I don't know what
skull
those
crawlers or whatever they're calling.
They look like big lizards almost.
Yeah.
But they showed there's a part and they show it in both trailers, I think, where you can see like a giant spider walking around.
Yeah, he's shooting up at it, or somebody's shooting up at it.
Yeah,
It's
they
like
look up at it, and like at first I just thought it was trees, but it turns out to be spider legs, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And terrifying. But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. I think that there might be. I think there's a chance.
And what was that animal that's in the water with the not a yak?
Oh, it was like an auroch or something like that.
Something like, but it's just huge.
Yeah, like an ancient-looking bison or something.
Yeah, which, I mean, the 70s Kong also showed that there's other large animals. Well, the one animal, they showed the giant snake. That almost like everything on the island is just big.
I had heard that the director said something like, you're not going to have to wait. Like, he was kind of anti-Godzilla as well a little bit, like as far as how much there was where they would tease Godzilla and then cut away. Godzilla and cut away. And they did that throughout the whole movie. I don't mind the teasing a little bit, but at some point, you got to see it.
Yeah.
He's the star of the movie.
Even when you see him, it's very dark, I think, at that one point.
Yeah. I mean, even having it in the dark is fine because it covers up, CG and stuff.
Yeah,
but
that's true.
You can't just keep teasing it. And I heard that the director for the new King Kong is saying, we're getting right into it, which is fun and scary at the same time. Like, I don't want him to overdo it. Yeah. But you're not going to have to wait too long to start seeing creatures.
Who do you prefer out of King Kong versus Godzilla? Just who's your favorite?
I'm a Godzilla fan.
See, and I've always grew up on King Kong.
I respect King Kong as like the first big monster.
Yeah, really. Yeah.
But for me, Godzilla is the king of the monsters.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I said this when I talked about King Kong movies. My uncle, I always liked dinosaurs movies and stuff like that. So I remember him telling me about King Kong. So he rented them for me way back in the day. So I've always really rooted for King Kong.
I like all the King Kong movies.
Yeah.
And it's cool. Even the one in the 30s, just watching them run around. And for the time, it might not look all that crazy now, but back then, that was insane.
Like I said, when I rewatched it, I was really impressed because, let's say we're in this movie and there's supposed to be a monster right there. They shot it with the stop motion, and then they would just have a screen in front of us and put something like plants or whatever to cover the edges, and they put the projector on the other side. And that was also cool because we would actually see what we're supposed to be reacting to as actors, and just had another camera filming, us in front of this.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really clever the way they figured out stuff like that. And they did that in the 70s version too. Certain things were filmed like that. Certain shots, where like the guy in the suit was filmed. And then they in the window when they had the big mechanical arm come in and grab her.
Yeah.
They show his face in the window. Well, the way they did that was just something like that. I think they did certain things still.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
I think probably my least favorite of the King Kong movies would have been the newer one,
the 2005.
Yeah, it's a little long.
It is very long. It's long, and some of that CGI is just so overkill.
I
The
thought
Brontosaurus stampede really stands out, where it looks a little ridiculous when they're running. He's carrying his camera, and there's all these like
the
legs
CG,
and stuff, and
the CG on Kong I thought looked great. Like his face and all that stuff
Yeah.
looked pretty amazing. But you're right about the dinosaurs. Like they made the dinosaurs look a little weird. I thought like they almost look like they should have been wider, but then somebody kind of squished them and made them taller and thinner. They just look so odd. And then, I mean, if you go back and watch Lord of the Rings, it's kind of like this too. And some of those scenes, it almost looks like they're just running around on a green screen, which I'm sure they are.
yeah,
But I mean, you can tell. And
Yeah.
I think that's one of those scenes is where they're running around in the Brontosaurus legs.
yeah. That scene was a little much in overkill. But what's kind of cool, I don't know how much you know about Kong. The spider pit scene was something apparently they shot, or some of it for the original Kong. It was cut for different people say different reasons.
And nobody can find it now, right? It's lost.
They say that Cooper burned film when he cut stuff. He cut it like it was gone.
Oh,
and
boy.
that he cut it. Apparently, the only thing you can find is sketches. There's a few still shots of some of the monsters that were going to be in the pit. And I think there was even some script pages that show what was going to happen, like storyboards or something. But no, there's no film of it.
I do like how in the original story and subsequent sequels and remakes that they don't make Kong the only monster.
Yeah.
Because I feel like when there's just one, yeah, I mean, that's crazy, but like it adds something when there's all sorts of like
Yeah.
crazy stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, once he's in New York, he's basically the only monster.
Yeah.
But it is cool. There's other things to contend with on the island.
Yeah. So anyway, the new one looks like it might be pretty sweet. I definitely plan on checking it out. I
Yeah.
love giant monster movies.
Yeah.
I'm a big dork for that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think I talked about this. I can't remember if it was with John or whoever, but the first trailer, I was just indifferent. It didn't make me all gung ho for it, but it didn't turn me away. I was just kind of, let me wait and see a little more of this. So I'm not like super anticipating, but I'm not like not looking forward. I don't know.
The first trailer it got me really pumped up.
Okay.
I just thought the way it was cut, like they would show glimpses of them, and then there's this one scene in the first trailer where like the sun, I guess, is setting, and you can just see this giant silhouette of Kong stand there, and it just looks so great. It's just the music that they used and the quick shots.
Yeah.
Without giving too much away, made everything look pretty sweet.
Yeah.
And then in the second trailer, they started to show too much, and I don't know if I like the direction they're going in.
See, and I wonder if that is studio pressure to, we got to make this look, we got to.
It can't be boring like Godzilla.
Yeah, so show some really cool scenes for the trailers.
And they got John C. Reilly in there being all goofy, which I have mixed feelings about
Yeah.
that. I don't want him to be too silly.
He doesn't do anything anymore, like serious. He used to be more a serious actor. I'm not saying it's wrong, but like he doesn't do anything serious anymore. It seems.
Yeah, you're probably right.
It's kind of like who was the other one? Seemed like there was another guy who, Vince Vaughn.
Oh yeah.
He used to do more serious movies, and now it's just, comedy for the most part.
That kind of is like a reverse Tom Hanks.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Yep.
He started off doing a bunch of comedy and good at
Yeah,
it, and now
yeah.
he doesnthink anything funny anymore.
But I mean, they say that about Bruce Willis too. He was not that. What was it? Moonlighting, I think was his television show he was in. He was not like a comedy actor, but it was a little more lighthearted, and he really, turned. I mean, he's done some stuff like the whole 9 yards and stuff, which is a little more comical.
Speaking of comedic actors that get serious and maybe seem miscast and end up in a great role, Michael Keaton, he's going to be playing a villain in the Spider-Man movie.
Oh yeah.
Do you have any thoughts about that?
I mean, I like Michael Keaton. I think it's just kind of cool to see him again. I do think it looks like he can do a good villain. So, I mean, might be interesting to see him.
It's going to be fun seeing him go from, like, he played Batman, and then he was... Did you see... What was it, Birdman?
I did not.
I haven't seen it yet either. I think I have it, but I haven't actually watched it yet. I heard it was good.
Yeah, a lot of people talked about it. Yeah.
So this will be his third appearance in kind of like a supervillain role.
Yeah. I think it'd be cool.
He looks like he's going to be a good villain. I'm interested in seeing Spider-Man. I'm glad they're not going to redo the whole story again. Like wasn't a fan of it the first time they redid it.
Yeah. I think I think he can do Psycho pretty good. He even did that a little bit in Batman, where he's like, you want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
A little bit of Beetlejuice in there.
Yeah, he's sloppy. I like him already.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, well, are you ready to talk about American Psycho?
Yeah, let's talk about it.
All right.
This movie came out in 2000. It has a 67% of Rotten Tomatoes. It's directed by Mary Herron, if I'm saying her name correctly. Stars Christian Bale, William Dafoe. Jared Leto also has a few other people in it. I don't know if you'd say they're starring roles. Reese Witherspoon, Josh Lucas, and a few others I've seen in other things. But So, let's start with a little trivia. This movie's based on the 1991 novel by Brent Easton Ellis. Bale spoke with an American accent offset until the rap party, and many of the crew apparently thought he was preparing for his next film role when he started to speak in his native accent. That was kind of interesting. Many designer labels didn't want their brand used, and apparently in the novel, it's he wears a Rolex, and it's kind of a big deal that he wears a Rolex, and in the movie Rolex wouldn't allow it, so they had to say, like, don't touch the watch. They couldn't say don't touch the Rolex. Securing the rights for the songs was the most expensive thing for the movie. I thought that was kind of interesting. Ewan McGregor was first offered the lead role, but he declined when Bale personally persuaded him to.
I think that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, probably. Bale followed the routine his character described early in the film, like, the getting up, the working out, the whole thing. The sound of the business cards came from slowing down the sound of a sword being pulled out of its sheath.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of cool. In the book, it's set in 1989. However, the movie is set in 87. You can kind of see hints at that. There's one point where you hear one of Reagan's famous speeches, and also, I guess, some of the GQ magazines. Someone took the time to look and find out what issues those were and when they were released. So it's set in 87. There's a myth that Huey Lewis didn't want his song used, and I guess that came from when they first released the soundtrack. His song was on there for what song was it?
Tip to be Square.
Tip to be Square. And then some kind of, I can't remember exactly why, but when they reissued it, they took the song off, and there was this big rumor that started that he didn't like his song being used, and I guess that's not exactly what happened. All the business cards they show have the same typo. I think it's acquisitions was spelt wrong. I think that's what it was. Drew Barrymore and Liv Tyler were sought for the female roles. And this was the most interesting one, I thought. Okay, in the scene where Detective Kimball, William Dafoe, is talking to Christian Bale's character, they had him, they did it like 3 times. One version where Kimball knew that Patrick Bateman killed Paul Allen. Then there was another time they shot where Kimball didn't know that he killed Allen. And the third time was that Kimball wasn't sure if he killed Allen. And what they did is they took those 3 different shots where he, like I said, he knew, he didn't know, he was unsure, and they edited all of them together so that when you're watching it, you get certain aspects where you're thinking he clearly knows that he did it, and then it kind of throw you off, like where they're at on it. And I thought that was kind of really clever and really cool
that's really cool
to do it like that. So that's my trivia.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
When you asked me to do a podcast, you were talking about wanting to do something a little different, and I threw something as different as I could at you just to see how you would deal with it, what you would think.
Home run. Very different.
All right. Good. I'm really curious to see what you thought. It's actually one of my favorite movies.
Right.
I remember when I first saw it, I had a friend that wanted me to see it.
Okay.
And at the time, I wasn't into horror movies or anything. I didn't want to see a movie where, somebody goes around killing people. I wasn't into that thing. Now I'm a lot more open to it. Anyway, I completely had the movie wrong. It wasn't what I was expecting it to be. I was expecting it to be like a slasher film.
Right.
I watched it with my mom. And
How'd that
just a warning out there to anybody who hasn't seen it. Don't watch it with your mom. It's not that type of movie. It could get awkward. But my mom thought it was a mystery movie. She loves mystery movies. Yeah. She's into that stuff. So she kept saying, I want to watch it, I want to watch it. I'm like, it's not what you think it is. We watched it. I think she kind of enjoyed it anyway, but it wasn't what she was looking for.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious, what were you expecting before you saw it?
Um, I had heard of it a few times. I had heard like that because I like a lot of '80s music and just '80s things in general. So someone at one point had told me that like he references like Phil Collins and Genesis and Huey Lewis and things like that. So I knew that there was like those kinds of things talked about in the movie. Other than that, I didn't really know what. I mean, I
Well,
figured he
were you
killed people.
expecting it to be more of like a horror?
Um, no, I didn't think it was a horror movie. I just figured what it was a just a movie about a guy who killed people. But not so much in the horror. I don't know how to explain it. Like, not so much like Freddy or Jason, like just mindless, killing. Like that he, at least in his head, thought he had reasons for this or something. I thought that much probably of it, but that's I don't know.
When did you realize that maybe what you were seeing was a little off?
There was one point where definitely, definitely okay when he picked up the cat and was holding a gun to it. But there was a point even before that I started to wonder, is this really happening? Like when he was chasing the girl down the hall, because he was okay when he killed the first guy, he had newspapers laid out and he had things to try to clean it up and stuff. But then when he was literally running down the hall to chase her and get her, I thought, well, how in the world could he stop anyone from seeing him or hearing him? So I started to wonder, is this really happening? Or is this in his head? Or is he just getting so blinded by it that he's just stopped caring? And then when it got to the point where he was shooting at the cops and he shot and then and like a huge explosion, he kind of even looks at the gun. I really started to wonder, like he was almost, how did that happen? Like and I started to wonder, I don't know if this is really happening. It started to make me wonder. And I feel like they did kind of leave it ambiguous, maybe a little bit, a little open to interpretation.
I never read the book. I didn't find out it was a book until I hopped on Wikipedia a couple years ago and was looking it up.
Yeah.
I had read that the author of the book, well, I guess in the book, the character that Christian Bale plays, I want to say Jason Bateman, that's not right. It's Patrick Bateman.
Yeah.
Patrick Bateman, he narrates the book as well as the movie. And throughout the book, he'll do things. He'll call people by the wrong name and start getting his facts mixed up and stuff as the book goes.
Okay.
And I guess it's a way to like show like how
He's
insane
okay.
he's becoming. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I noticed they do that in the movie too. And I had heard that the author left the story completely ambiguous for you just to guess on your own. Did it really happen? Didn't it? And they pulled that off, I thought, in the movie pretty well.
Yeah. I should have probably mentioned this too in trivia, but I guess Christian Bale improvised the kind of backwards moonwalk before he kills Jared Leto, and apparently the author wasn't really keen on that, but the director liked it.
Oh, that's maybe the most classic scene from the movie is when he has Jared Leto in his apartment. That scene actually was parodied by Weird Al and Huey Lewis.
Yeah, I should have said that. That was something I do remember.
So you mentioned that you had heard about the music in the movie.
Yes.
What did you think of the soundtrack?
I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Not all of them were like my favorite, but like I do like '80s music, so I was like, oh yeah.
I feel like the music in this movie maybe plays a larger role in the movie itself. Like the music almost becomes a character along with him, like an extension of him.
Well, it's funny that he listens to such mellow music to me. Like,
yeah,
I mean, even in the '80s, there was harder music, and you just kind of think like, since he kills people, or maybe he kills people, that he would maybe listen to something a little darker or something, but he's listening to like cheerful, happy, snappy music.
Well, I actually noticed something about it. Like the
Okay.
first time we see him listening to music is towards the beginning of the movie. He's walking down his hallway to work, and he's listening to "I'm Walking on Sunshine." Whoa. It's like the happiest song ever. You can't listen to it and not dance. It's the happiest song ever made, and he's walking down this hallway with just the grouchiest look on his face. He's got a scowl, pure scowl. And I always thought, that's funny. That's a joke in itself.
Yeah.
Well, then the next time he's listening to music, it's Robert Palmer.
Was it simply?
Simply Irresistible.
Simply
And so
Irresistible.
the song is all about how he's so into this girl, he can't
Yeah.
resist her. She's
Yeah.
everything he needs. And what's happening in the scene is he's listening to his headphones while his girlfriend is jibber jabbering
Oh
at
yeah,
him.
yeah,
So I thought it was kind of funny. He's sitting there resisting his girlfriend as
Yeah.
he's listening to that song.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, that's 2 times for kind of like what he's doing and what he's listening
it's
to.
contrary to
Yeah.
That's interesting.
There's another time where he's listening to Lady in Red.
Mm-hmm.
And that one always confused me because the first 2, like, he's doing the opposite of what it says.
Mm-hmm.
But depending on how you feel about the movie, John Kimball, or not John Kimball, Detective Kimball,
Yes. William Dafoe.
played by William Dafoe,
Mm-hmm.
Willem Dafoe.
What did I say?
I said William.
Oh, is it William?
It's Willem.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
I believe. EM.
I did not know that. Okay.
Anyway, that's the first time we see Willem Dafoe. I think it's one of the times where Willem Dafoe comes to see him, and in the music, that's talking about how there's nobody there. It's just him and the girl in red. Mm-hmm. And Jean comes walking in, and she's got kind of a reddish tint to her hair, so she could be the lady in red.
Yeah.
And he's saying that nobody's there. I'm wondering if, well, obviously, it's all up to the viewer as to what's happening in the movie, but I think that might be a hint that Detective Kimball is just a figment of his imagination.
Huh. I mean, maybe, but then she brings a drink to him.
Yeah, but I mean, that could all be in his head, too. Like, he could be... Half of the movie could just be us seeing what he's fantasizing about. Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Right, because you get to see where the ATM actually says, like, put the kitten in...
Feed me a stray cat.
Yeah, or whatever it says, yeah. So, yeah, maybe.
Just some interesting things I thought about the music. I like how he feels the need to review what he's listening to, like give synopses.
Yeah. Of the band's
yeah
past work and how this precedes it, or they hit their stride last time and now they're too commercial or whatever.
That's actually something he does in the movie quite often, and it's a weird part of his personality. I almost feel like it's a little game he plays with people.
Okay.
Where he wants to sound intelligent and smart and everything. Like, at the beginning of the movie, there's a scene where they're out to dinner. Mm-hmm. And he gives some great little speech about how the world needs...
hungry and wherever, and yeah.
And nobody, like, realizes that he's kind of messing around until he talks about how we need to get rid of materialism. And everybody in this movie is materialistic, and just, like, there's no likable character in this movie.
No, yeah.
They're all, for the expression, 1%ers.
Yeah.
Working on Wall Street, having parties.
Yeah.
They think that it's no big deal to have a $500 lunch.
Yeah, and just how jealous they all got, or he got specifically, when someone else's business card was, I guess, nicer than his. The font was raised.
Yeah, it's funny how, like, they really point that out. Like, they have all these things. What's there to worry about? But then the things that they worry about, or at least him, are just these little crazy things, like who's got the nicest business card.
Yeah.
I can't get a reservation at Dorsia.
Oh, yeah. But the girl was so out of it, she didn't even... He still just told her they were there, yeah.
I have a question for you.
Right.
As far as Christian Bale's performance goes. Were you reminded at all, and this is to bring it around to the sci-fi portion of your podcast, were you reminded at all of Data? Brent Spiner?
I did not catch that, no.
There are parts when he's talking, and I nobody else seems to see it, but I feel like there are times when Data had his emotion chip turned off, and he kind of acts like a jerk, and like real cocky. And there are times in the movie where I feel like Christian Bale is acting just like that. Like, I can see Brent Spiner almost in the role at times, not the whole time.
It's an interesting observation. I didn't pick up on it, but I almost feel like maybe if I was to look for it next time, I might be able to see it.
So I'm looking around the Escape Pod cast here, and I see posters for Indiana Jones and Back to the Future and Star Trek. This is a little bit out of your norm.
This is the beyond.
This is the beyond, yes.
This is the beyond of our...
So what were your thoughts on this movie?
Like I said, I found it interesting. I do like a lot of mysteries, too. This might seem dorky. I watch Dateline. I like those kinds of shows, forensic shows and stuff. I do like those kinds of things. So I did find it interesting to, instead of, hey, there's all these murders and you're following a cop or a detective trying to figure out who did it, you know right off the bat who's doing it. And now you're kind of somewhat seeing a cop trying to figure out. They didn't quite go into it as much as maybe some other movies would, but there was the presence of a a cop trying to figure it out and him trying to cover his tracks and whatever. So it's a little bit of a seen it from the reverse angle a little bit. I mean, some movies have done that since, where you see more from the point of view of the killer as opposed to from the point of view of the police trying to find him. But I like I said, I found it interesting. But then sometimes certain things kind of, I don't know, a little off. And I'm not just talking like, because like, okay, at one point it just seems like he kills people just to kill people. Like literally that's just his thing. And then next thing you see, he's like keeping them like almost like in a free, or no, he has to hang in the closet. Then you see a head in a refrigerator. He mentioned something about eating some girl's brains. So it's just like, almost seemed like, wait, where did that come from? Because they never showed him doing that. Which I just always thought, okay, he just has something off in his head. He likes to kill people. And then you go into this like deeper thing that he was doing with them.
For me, it's one of those movies that you can watch over and over and still catch new things or think about new ideas. Is it something you might watch again?
I might, just to try to catch up on or pick up on some little things that I missed, because I don't know. I mean, I guess the first time you
would watch it with a completely different set of eyes at that point.
Yeah, probably. I don't know if it's just me, but I kind of, okay, so the intro where you see like the drops of blood, and you got that, I don't know if it's like a cello or a violin playing, it almost reminded me of Psycho, as in Alfred Hitchcock. Not the but do you remember the part, there's music in that movie where it's like kind of creepy, but it's like a cello or something. I mean, I'm not saying it's identical, but it's just something about that kind of reminded me. Maybe that's just me seeing something that wasn't even meant to be. I do know they said that the fact that his name is Bateman was a play off of Norman Bates from Psycho. That was probably should have been trivia too, but
yeah. I also heard something else that could have went in trivia is that I haven't watched Dexter, but from what I understand, it's kind of similar to American Psycho. Like the character is a murderer, but he's the good guy.
Yeah, I guess he kills bad people, but if I'm not mistaken, he also works for
for the police station. He's a forensic guy or something
like that. So he kind of knows how to cover things up or whatever. Yeah.
I haven't watched it, so I can't judge it. It sounds like a ripoff and stupid to me.
I've heard people talk about it, but yeah.
Like, he should go to jail. He shouldn't be the good guy, but whatever. I had heard that he, at one point, used the name Dr. Patrick Bateman as an alias.
I don't remember that point, but when was that in the movie?
No, in Dexter.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying that Christian Bale's character used that name.
A name that Christian Bale did use was Cliff Huxtable. Did you catch that?
I didn't. I don't remember that.
I
thought he said he was gonna go talk to someone named Cliff Huxtable.
Yeah, he didn't use it for himself, but when he was talking to Willem Dafoe one of the times, he said that he had an appointment with Cliff Huxtable at the Four Seasons, and he had to go. And that's a joke that always escaped me. Like, I never heard it.
Yeah.
And then when I finally did catch it, I started laughing.
Wouldn't you think that would be a risky thing to do? Because I never really got into the Cosby Show, but I know a lot of people did. And wouldn't you think that if you're kind of possibly being looked at as you wouldn't want to throw out something that someone might, wait a minute,
Yeah,
the cop might know that that's not a real person.
It's just a funny joke. Yeah, if that were all really happening, that would have been a way for him to get caught.
Yeah.
And he was acting so suspicious every time he was around.
Yeah, he really was. The way he quickly pushed the magazines into the drawer, and then what's he say at one point? Am I being he says something to him.
Like, I hope I'm not being cross-examined here.
Yes.
Something
like why would you even say that?
Yeah.
Like, I was like, are you stupid? Like, what are you doing? You need a challenge? Yeah, I thought that was a little odd that he would even say something like that.
There was a deleted scene where it kind of hinted that Willem Dafoe wasn't real either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was a scene where they meet up in a club, actually. And I can't remember the scene all that well. It's been a while since I've seen that deleted scene. But Willem Dafoe follows him into the club, and he said something to him, and I was like, aha, he's not supposed to be real. But then they cut it out, so I'm not sure.
I think it might have been a little more interesting, not to knock the movie, if you saw a little bit more of what William Dafoe was doing, or if he was figuring anything out. I don't know. But then again, I guess if they're going the route of maybe this didn't really happen at all, that almost ruins that illusion. So I guess I get why they didn't do it. But
Hmm. So did we talk about the where he's shooting at the police?
briefly, we briefly talked about that. But
Okay, well, there's that scene, and then there's the scene where he's chasing the girl with the chainsaw. I don't know if you noticed, like, occasionally throughout the movie, one of his catchphrases is, I have to return some videotapes.
yes, I did catch that.
I don't know if he's always telling the truth when he says that, but it seems like he watches a lot of movies. He intakes a lot of media. And he's always got a movie going in the background when he's at his apartment by himself.
Yeah.
And I noticed that whatever movie he was playing in the background would pop up later in the movie. I think it only happened twice.
I know at one point he's watching Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and obviously...
Yeah, shortly after that, it's him running down the hallway with the chainsaw chasing the girl. And then the time before that, he was watching, like, an adult movie, and then he ended up kind of reenacting what was going on the screen there with the two girls.
Yeah.
So when he gets in the gunfight with the two cops, and he manages to somehow blow up their cars with the pistol, and then the helicopter's chasing him, I feel like that's part of that. Like, he watches so many movies. Like, that's the kind of thing that would only happen in a movie.
Right, yeah. Like, almost... Okay, I see what you're saying. Like, he's seen so much of those kinds of things happening, it's just... That's what he was envisioning to be like, or... Okay.
Like, he knows that couldn't actually happen. That's why he gives his gun a funny look after he blows up the cop.
Yeah.
But since he's so crazy and he's living out all these things that he sees in the movies, like, that's something that would happen in a movie.
So, do you think he really did any of these things?
It's hard to say. I think a few of them seem like maybe.
Because they said Jared Leto's character was really in England at one point.
That's what they said at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Like, I'm wondering, maybe he heard that he went to London, and then he's just thinking about how much he hated him. And, you know, he could kill him and say he went to London.
Right, because they showed when he was at the laundromat yelling at that lady. Didn't they even show where he did something? Like, and then you see it's, like, all in his head. Like, where he was mad because she didn't get a stain out, and then... There
were scenes, especially at the beginning, a couple where he would say something to somebody that was just shocking, and nobody would give him the reaction. He, at the laundromat, he said, I'm going to kill you. And she kind of reacted, but he was yelling at her, too. But then at the bar, he said he was going to kill her and play with her blood. And she didn't react to it at all.
Yeah.
There was the model. She was asking him what he did. He says, I'm into murders and executions, mostly. And then she starts talking about guys that are into mergers and acquisitions. So there's a bunch of little stuff like that throughout the movie.
Yeah.
There's the scene where he's dragging Jared Leto's body out of the lobby, and the guy attending the lobby looks up, sees him, just looks right back down.
Right, yeah.
And then he bumps into his coworker, and he's like, oh, where did you get that bag?
Yeah.
So it makes it seem like whatever it's just so crazy that you can't really tell. It's so ambiguous.
Yeah.
Like, it really hit that on the head.
I'm going to assume maybe he didn't, because... Or at least not a lot of them, because I feel like he would have got caught, or there'd be more, more like suspicion on him, especially the way he acted with Dafoe.
I think perhaps if maybe he really did do any of it, maybe he got the homeless guy.
Yeah.
And maybe the scene where Jean came over to his apartment and he was holding like the nail gun up to the back of her head. Like, maybe that was real, but then he stopped himself and he changed his mind.
Yeah. And it's funny how when she says, should I go? And he says, well, yeah, I'm afraid I might hurt you. She takes it to mean, like...
Emotionally.
Yeah, I might break your heart or make it hard for you to have to come to work and see me, blah, blah, blah. But he more means physically hurt you. It's just funny.
I always shake my head at that scene by just how much she's throwing herself at him.
Yeah.
Like, she obviously has a little bit of a crush on him.
Yeah.
And then in that scene, she keeps talking about, like, she gives him all the chances in the world because she wants to stay the night. And he's like, nah, because, well, he doesn't say I'm going to kill you, but that's what he means. Like, you better leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's lots of stuff in the movie where they leave everything open for you to wonder, like, what's real and what's not. How did you feel about that?
Usually I don't like it when movies try to leave it ambiguous to what's happened, if something really did happen or not. Sometimes it is kind of cool and clever, but I think a lot of times they try to play it off that that's so artistic, but you know, sometimes it just more seems like they just can't think of a really clever way, or like the show Lost. I think that show couldn't figure out what they were doing, so they had to just make up this ridiculous thing that was going on. I don't know if you ever watched the show.
I haven't seen it.
Okay.
I saw the first episode.
Okay. Like, but in movies like this where they don't know how to, they can't figure out a logical or clever way to tie these things together, or a really cool ending, or whatever it is. And so, I know. We'll leave it ambiguous.
They tie themselves into a corner, and then
yes, they back themselves in the corner, and they can't think of
it was all a dream type of thing.
Out. Yeah, is it a dream? Maybe it's not a dream.
Do you feel that American Psycho is doing that?
I'm not saying they necessarily were. I just would kind of like to know. Did he really do any of this? Some of it, none of it. I'm not saying it's bad. Certainly, other movies have done it worse. And some movies, it actually kind of has been interesting or clever way to do it. But all in all, I rather know what and why and how.
I almost look at the plot of the movie as secondary to it just being a look at greed and materialism and all that stuff. And also, I think that it's just to make you think.
Like when you say greed, are you saying like basically he essentially has everything he could want, but it's not enough, so he has to take up this hobby essentially to
like that's why he's driven crazy, is because he's been handed everything. That his dad gave him the job. He's the vice president here. He doesn't actually seem to do anything.
Yeah, I guess that was another thing in trivia. They say you never see him do work. No. He's always there, but you never actually see him do any of his work.
No, it doesn't seem like he does anything. He's just filling a spot. Yeah. He fills his life with just all this meaningless stuff. He keeps saying, he repeats, I just want to fit in. Yeah. And like that's what he obsesses about. He just wants to fit in. He wants his appearances. Everything to him is how everything looks. And he says multiple times throughout the movie, what's on the inside doesn't matter. And that's just part of how shallow that all these people are. Yeah. He's just the extreme of it. Everybody else is like that too. Yeah. He is just the ultimate. Like, he has no feelings.
Right, because when he's talking to the cop and he says, oh, that's, whatever he lives. Oh, very nice. Thank you. Like, yes. Like, like it just fed his ego a little bit more. Something else about when the girl says about how nice his apartment is. Yep. Thank you.
Yeah. Yes. And then they get to the other guy's apartment. He takes the girls to Paul Allen's apartment after he kills him with an axe. And one of the girls says, this is nicer than your other apartment.
Yeah, and he always seems a little insulted about it. Like, well...
Yeah. And when he first breaks in there, he has a moment where he panics. He says, I panic when I realize that his apartment overlooks the park and is obviously more expensive than mine.
In spite of, I killed somebody, I might get in trouble for it, I got to get rid of the body. Oh man, but his view is way better than mine. Yeah.
Like that's the stuff he's worried about. Yeah. Yeah, it's just
I could almost see him. I'm sorry to cut you out. I could almost see him like, well, I don't want to use this bag to stuff a bloody, disgusting dead body in. I'll use this lesser brand bag. Like I could almost see him like doing that. Like if this was, I don't know, big brand names, Louis Vuitton. Let's just say, like Louis is too good to stuff something that I have to throw away or burn, so I'll use this more lower grade bag. Like I could see him doing something.
You think if somebody chopped up a body, they'd stick it in like garbage bags and then in a cooler or something. I mean, not to get too morbid, but he has it in this nice bag where he walks out there and he sees Louis, and Louis says, "Where did you get that fancy bag?"
Yeah, and he actually, but like I said, that almost might have been funny if you see him. Well, no, this is too nice of a bag to do that. Like instead of like I got to get rid of this guy, I got to put him in something. Like, actually, no, not that one, not that one. Okay, this one, fine.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I'd heard that, like, college classes, like, they have sessions where, like, they'll analyze the movie and talk about the characters and stuff and see if they can either figure out what's going on or just analyze his character in general and figure out what's wrong with this dude. I feel like that's, like, more the point of the movie than the story necessarily, is just to make you think. And for me, that's part of the fun. Like, I can rewatch it over and over again, think about what's going on.
So you said ultimately you think he did some of it, but not all of it.
Maybe some of it.
You say
Definitely
the
not
homeless
some
guy?
of it.
Okay.
Like, I highly doubt that he was running down that hallway with the
Yeah.
chainsaw. It was so
yeah,
loud.
that would have definitely got someone would have opened their door like what is going on and saw him.
And just like the ridiculous amount of bodies he had in Paul Allen's apartment in
Right.
that short of a time period. So some of it, like, just definitely the over the top stuff was
Yeah.
like in his imagination.
Yeah, the cops and let's see, he killed the woman that saw him with the cat, the however many police officers, the guy that was at the front desk of that one building, the janitor that happened to walk out the one time,
The homeless guy and his dog.
yeah, the homeless guy.
Maybe that woman that he was walking behind at the beginning of the movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that because I couldn't tell whose head was in the fridge.
That was the model.
A model.
The model he met at the club. And she says, "You think I'm stupid, don't you? But I can tell you're a really nice guy."
Okay.
And then it cuts to him in his office playing with a lock of her hair.
Oh wow. Okay.
I had the body count up to about 10 as far as like what they showed or implied.
Right, but then I guess some of the people that he spoke about in the voicemail that he left is from other books because I guess there are other books that feature this character and that the author wrote, and apparently some of those things he references or says are from those books as opposed to the main book that this was written about.
Huh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. I mean, this probably would have went in trivia too. There, at least one. I think the author has had several books come out as movies, and I know one of them featured a character that is Patrick Bateman's little brother,
Yeah, I saw something about that.
and played by one of the guys from Dawson's Creek.
Oh, okay, I didn't know who played him, but yeah.
I don't know if they ever referenced that in the movie, but supposedly he gets a phone call from his brother, and that's who it's supposed to be.
Do you know if his brother's supposed to be crazy too, or?
I haven't seen the movie. I can't even think of the name of it right now. We'll probably
Okay.
have to look that up.
Okay, I'm just curious.
So, what did you think? Did you like the movie?
I would just say it was a movie that was interesting to watch and then talk about. Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know if I'd go far to say I liked it. I'm not trying to.
No, that's fine.
I mean, it's definitely interesting to have a discussion about because there's so many layers to it, or how I interpret it versus how you interpret it. That's interesting to talk about. But you know, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes the way he talked, like, was really like seemed over the top. Mm-hmm. I was like, why?
Those might be the data moments I was talking about.
Like, I mean, they really hit their sound in '87 when they were, you know. I was just like, okay,
Yeah,
like,
he definitely had shifting moods. Like,
yeah, like almost like a radio DJ or something.
Mm-hmm. He'd get into that mood where he'd want to start like impressing somebody with something or telling them. Yeah, that's why it's one of my favorite movies. Though, is, you know, it's fun to watch and think about and talk about.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different view on it.
Yeah.
I look at movies as an art form. They're all subjective.
Yeah.
Either you like it or you don't. There's no right or wrong answer.
No, yeah.
What really helps for me too is I enjoy that darker comedy. I've become a fan of horror movies. I had a buddy that was excited for Freddy vs. Jason when that was coming out.
Okay.
And I wasn't a fan of horror movies at all. I didn't want to watch any of them. He made me sit down and watch all of the Friday the 13th and all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets. And I remember watching the first Friday the 13th and I was thinking to myself, oh, I don't want to see these people die. That's gross. And then maybe by like the third one, I'm sitting there cheering for Jason.
Yeah.
Go get her. And it just became fun, like seeing all the different ways he could do it. And then, you know, you become a little desensitized to it.
Yeah.
I don't know if I would classify this movie as a horror movie necessarily.
Well, I mean, it's definitely a mystery. It's definitely got thriller.
I'd put it down as maybe like a dark comedy with horror elements. And a little bit of a thriller, a little bit of mystery in there.
Yeah.
Horror is supposed to kind of make the viewer uneasy and get them thinking about things.
Well, I think, though, the thing about like a Freddy, a Jason, a Mike Myers movie is it's so over the top. Where this is somewhat more grounded.
This isn't scary horror.
Yeah.
It's visually what he's doing. It's a horrifying scene.
Yeah.
But since it's more of a dark comedy, it's almost funny in the way, like, you wouldn't think somebody getting chopped up would be funny, but the way it happens in this movie, and for the reasons, too, he kills a guy because his business card was better.
Who was that? Which one?
Paul Allen with the axe, Jared Leto.
Oh, okay. That was the reason I didn't.
I think it was a combination of two things. I think it was everybody liked his business card, and he could get a reservation at Dorsia at any time he wanted, but yet Patrick could never do it.
Okay.
And then later on, he was going to kill Lewis for the same reason in the bathroom.
Yes.
And then Lewis turned around and kissed his hand when he went to go strangle him.
Yeah. I was almost expecting him to still, at some point, go back and get him somewhere else, and they never...
I like how they kind of play with your expectations there. Like, he's going to get him, and then the guy just turns around and it's like, hey, I've always wanted you. And it kind of freaks him out so much that he goes and he starts washing his gloves.
Yeah.
Just has to get out of there.
Yeah.
And that's when he starts dropping, I have to return the videotapes.
Yeah. See, and now did that really happen? Because it doesn't seem like that guy couldn't get...
See, that's one of the things that really may have happened. Nobody died there.
Plus, like, how could he kill him in the bathroom when there's all those people right out there and get out and nobody... I mean, you got to figure someone could have walked in. And, you know, it just seems like it would be hard for him to... He would have had to leave him there. Like, probably had to put him in a stall. There would have been no way to... You know, when they interview people, well, who was here? He was there. They would have to put his name down that he was there. And
right. Yeah, if the movie were super realistic, and like that would definitely... But since it's so hard to tell what's going on, and it's kind of goofy anyway, I have a buddy that likes to think that everything really did happen, and he just got away with it all. For him, it's more fun to think of it that way. I can't really think of it that way, because kind of like you, I try and think of it... Sorry. I kind of think of it... I tend to look at movies in the more realistic way possible, unless they're like really over the top. Like, you know what you're going into.
Yeah.
You know, if it's just a silly comedy, I'm not going to look for realism.
Right, sure.
But I try and think of everything like, how would this work in real life?
Yeah.
And analyze it that way. This movie does a pretty good job at suspending my disbelief. So, you know, the mystery is there of what's happening as far as like in his head. But I don't really look at anything through the perspective of how could this really happen?
For this specific movie, you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't know, like, only because they set it up at first how he got out the body. I mean, they never show what he did with the body, I don't think. Did they say? The first guy, Jared Leto? Did they say what he did with him?
Yeah, he said he was dissolving in a bathtub in Hell's Kitchen, if I remember right.
Okay. But, I mean, they showed how he went to the house, he packed up clothes to make it look like he was gone, he changed the answer. So they were kind of, to me, at that point, trying to show that, or at least, you know, they want you to think this really happened, and how he is trying to make it like this guy left. So, but then, like I said, later when he's being so careless about stuff, because he didn't do anything with the homeless guy, he just kind of left him there. Which, I mean, I guess...
You wouldn't really need to.
Yeah, you really wouldn't need to. There would be no way to... you know, figure that out. But, I don't know, I guess I kind of was thinking that they put it out there like it was really happening until it got too extreme, then I wasn't sure. And I think maybe that was maybe why, to make it seem more like it was really happening in the beginning, and then to throw all this craziness. Well, you know, you're trying to figure out, well, what is really happening here, or is any of this really happening? I don't know.
Well, I would recommend the movie.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're a fan of a little more of a, I mean, like I said, maybe not slasher, but it's kind of a a slasher light. I don't know.
It's definitely a mix of genres.
Yeah. If you like that sort of thing, yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
We gave probably a lot of it away.
Yeah, you know, with this podcast, you know, I've heard other podcasts where they'll talk about, you know, this is a spoiler podcast. I figure if you're listening to this, you either you've seen it, or you don't care.
Yes.
Yeah, we're analyzing the movie. I'm not going.
Well,
to
the movie's
tiptoe
also
around.
about 17 years old, so
That too, but I see no point to tiptoe around anything in any of these episodes because.
well, even with the spoilers, it can still be enjoyable. In fact, it's good for multiple viewings.
Well, yeah, especially if you're trying to analyze. If you're looking at it from the point of view that he did some of it, but not all of it, and you can watch it to try to figure out which ones you think he really did do, and how it seems like there's logical clues left behind that.
Or even just picking apart his character, like what makes him tick.
For sure. 'Cause he definitely doesn't like people touching him. That seemed to be one of his big ones. He doesn't like to be one-upped.
Yeah. Or even why he is the way he is. Like, just his boring life. And the fact that he consumes so much media and wants everybody to look at him as an expert on everything.
Yeah. Well, that's probably where we'll end it for this episode. I'd like to thank everybody out there for listening and checking us out. You can find us on iTunes and Podomatic by searching for the Escape Podcast. You can email us any questions, suggestions, criticisms, anything you want to escapepodcast16@gmail.com. And you can also get us on Facebook at facebook.com/escapepodcast16. I'd like to thank Brandon for helping me out and joining me. It was nice having you.
Thank you.
And we will hopefully see you next week. Take care.